Hi, my name is Matt Phillips, and I'm a member of the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra. I've been in the orchestra for over 20 years now, and I started playing when I was in the fourth grade, actually, in the Kenton school system. I'm from Buffalo, New York, originally. And today I want to talk about certain aspects of technique to help you perform your best, and also ways of getting your instrument and bow ready so that you can be prepared to play. Hi, so let's talk a little bit about the bow itself. Getting the bow ready. When you take it out of its case, you want to tighten it up a certain amount so you can play and have enough tension, but not too much tension. When I learned to play, I remember my first teachers told me to actually put a pencil in between the hair and stick and tighten the bow to the extent where it would fall out from between the two. And that actually works pretty well as a guide. You can try it yourself. I would just recommend not tightening it too much. You really want to have this curve still. You don't want to have totally straight wooden stick here. It's not really great for the stick if you do that, and it's also not good for your hand because you can create a lot of tension after playing for a while. So that's what I would recommend. As far as rosin goes, you'll see with rosin, some people will take out their bow first thing in the morning or whenever they take out their instrument and just kind of rosin like crazy and just back and forth, for 4 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever. I recommend just trying to play first. Play a few notes on your instrument, see how it sounds, see if you can if it grips the string the way it is. If it sounds fine, you probably don't have to rosin at all. If you need some, maybe just a couple strokes, like so. Just a couple strokes back and forth is all I do. If you rosin more than that, you can actually choke the sound. I mean, the point of rosin is to actually grip the string well while you're playing, but if you overdo it, you can really you can have a quality sound really isn't that attractive, and also can actually diminish the volume, which is kind of not what you want either. So those are some suggestions about the bow. And don't forget, when you're done, to always loosen the bow too. Put it back in the case. I have it pretty loosened like that. So I want to talk a little bit about tuning the instrument up now. So as you probably know, there are fine tuners down here on the tailpiece of the instrument, and pegs here at the top with the peg box for when you're really not close enough to the pitch and you really need to get in the general vicinity. Now, the way you tune is that you turn the forward direction makes the string sharper, and then the reverse, pulling it back towards you, makes the instrument flatter, pitch flatter. Make sure that you're actually pressing into the opposite side of the peg box as you tune. In other words, don't just turn the peg forward, because it probably won't stay, and if you overturn, you could actually break the string. So when you do tune, using the pegs, I would recommend doing this with your teacher present at first, your school teacher or private teacher, whomever, so that they really can see what you're doing here. But you have to give a counter pressure, so you're tuning. Might not be able to tell, but I'm actually pushing in towards the box, and then the opposite for the other side, for the C and G strings. It's the opposite. So, and if your strings pegs rather get stuck, which often happens in the summertime, I have this peg dope here, which you can actually just put a couple marks on each peg, and it'll kind of lubricate the pegs a little bit to help in the summer months. The opposite, there are drops here for the winter when it's often very dry, and then sometimes the pegs just slip totally. So you can put a couple drops where the peg meets the wood section of the box. Take the pegs out and just kind of mark those up. Make sure that you want to try to keep the instrument at a constant temperature as much as you can. It's difficult where we live especially, but you don't want to leave your instrument in a car, like in the wintertime. You don't want to leave it in a trunk of a car where it's very cold and very dry, and then bring it into inside where it's maybe 70 degrees or something, because that can damage the instrument itself, plus it can really make the instrument out of tune. And there's a sound post that is just held up by pressure, a little dowel that touches the top and back inside the instrument. You've probably seen it. But if all the strings become loose, that can actually fall down, and then you have to go see a violin specialist and have it stood up, and so that's another hassle. So you want to just try to keep it in as constant a temperature as you can. Now I'm going to talk about actually holding the instrument itself and your positioning and how to best have the proper technique. Okay, so first of all, you want to really try to keep the instrument more or less parallel to the ground. You'll fall a little bit maybe, and at times maybe you might even have it a little bit at a higher angle, but shoot for trying to have the scroll going straight forward. And for your hand position, we want to try to have the elbow more or less going straight down to the ground, or possibly a little bit over towards our right from your vantage point to the right side. The reason being, if you see, if I turn my elbow to the left, I really can't even play on the low strings very well. You really, to play in tune and to really be able to stretch, you really need to have your elbow under a little bit farther. So that's the case. And then also, as a little side note, don't forget to have your nails kind of cut on the short side like I have. When you don't, it can get in the way. You really want to have the pads of your fingers touching the strings so you really get the best sound and best contact. Plus, with longer nails, you can actually damage the strings as well, so that's not a great idea. So there you have it. So it's really pretty simple. Keep your elbow or shoulders back too. You don't want to hunch over. Your power is going to come from your back, so you really want to be standing straight as you can, and that's pretty much it. When you move up in position later on, you might come even a little farther under the instrument just because you have to get up there. You're not at that stage probably yet, but still, definitely this kind of position is not going to help you, as you can see, because you can't, it'll stop you at this point in the viola. Sometimes you need to get up farther. So there you have your basics on standing and playing. Okay, so now some suggestions for playing in a seated position, because we spend so much of our time playing this way if we're playing in a small ensemble orchestra or string orchestra or a string quartet. So our posture is very important. Like when you're standing, I would still say you want to keep your back straight and your shoulders back, because your power is going to come from your back. So you don't want to be slouching, you don't want to be sitting like this. I generally sit towards the end of my chair, though if I'm playing a really long symphony, say something that's an hour long or something, I might occasionally drift back a little bit, to be honest. I mean, I don't think I really do much, but you really want to sit out on your chair as much as you can. And you want to sit up. And also, so the environment, of course we can't always have a perfect position, because if we're playing, if you're lucky to be in a school system where you have 100 people on stage with you, you might just not have enough room to be perfectly positioned, because you might, be right next to a cellist or something, or just kind of scrunched together. So do your best. Try to still keep your shoulders back, instrument kind of out to the side like you're playing standing up. Not right in front, because then you're curved, and your back is going to be strained, and it'll be difficult to play after a while. So as best as you can, sitting up like this. I like to have my foot back, my right foot that is back to the side a little bit, because I think that makes me feel like I'm sitting up a little bit better. And it's actually a way that the great violist William Primrose recommended people sit, and he's probably the most famous violist ever, so look him up, William Primrose. So anyway, so that's what I would do. Sit up straight, and you have to get along with your stand partner. You have to share your music stance or do the best you can. Sometimes, depending, you have to be in a position where you can see your conductor too. So you just do the best you can. You might have to adjust slightly. Sometimes I would turn my chair a little bit, maybe, if I have to, but to still keep that position. The important thing is that you can play well, and that you can play for a duration of period, because you can't just get up and stop playing in the middle of a concert. You have to keep going. So there you have it. Now I want to talk a little bit about bow positioning as you play the viola. So, putting your viola up. Now, you want to think of your bow as traveling more or less parallel to the bridge. And the best sound on the instrument is probably going to be somewhere in here where it's midway between the end of the fingerboard and your bridge. You have to kind of find where it is on your instrument. It varies a little bit from instrument to instrument. But that's where you want to try to generally spend your time playing, especially now when you're just starting out. Later on, if that's where you'll get the richest sound. There'll be times in orchestras, say, or other teachers, or if you're playing a piece of music and there'll be directions that'll say play softer, say. And in that case, you really want to probably travel a little bit closer over the fingerboard and have a little less pressure with your right hand, your first few fingers here, less pushing into the string. But generally, this is a good area to play, somewhere in here. Also, a little technique, some composers will say, every once in a while you'll see an indication that says ponticello. You'll see that maybe when you're more advanced, which means to play on or near the bridge, which gives a very glassy kind of sound. Like, and that's actually an indication some composers want that. But generally you want to play in that area of the string. Okay, now for holding the bow, I like to have I recommend you have the stick fall between your two knuckles here on your first finger. See, like that. So you're not way over the stick and you're not way back on the stick either. You're really between the two knuckles. You can see that. And have your other fingers really fall over the stick too, like so. And I just rest the pinky on the back side of the stick. And if you can see where I have my thumb in relation, I keep the thumb bent and I have it touching the frog, touching this point of the frog. You can't see that. So it's like so. Okay? But also make sure you're not just on top of the stick like this, because that, especially with the viola, you really need to dig in and get a sound, more so than the violin, where the violin will often speak a little bit easier. The viola, you really need every ounce of energy you can muster. So often. So get those fingers a little farther down on the stick, and that'll help you get into the string a little more. So there you have it. Now the direction of bowing, you want to generally, as I said, play in a parallel way to the bridge, but also I would curve in a little bit at the frog, so your wrist is a little bit higher, and then when you go to the tip, where you straighten out in the middle, and then when you get to the tip of the bow, think of pushing out with your elbow this way, so your bow is straight. What you want to avoid is, you see some people play like this, where they're pulling the bow backwards. And you'll see that the sounding point then gets away from where you want it to be. Instead of being, parallel to the bridge, the bow can start becoming something like this. So you want to open this hinge, this elbow, right? You don't want to pull back like that. You want to do this. Open that elbow. Now, it's sometimes difficult to actually see that from your point of view when you're playing, because you're looking down at the instrument. You can't really see everything if you're looking in this direction. So it can be helpful to have a little mirror somewhere set up off to the side where you can every once in a while play and just freeze and see what your positioning is. And then if it's off, you can kind of adjust, rotate one way or another, then continue, start again. And just kind of randomly check when you're in different parts of the bow and see if it looks like you're really, when you're at the tip of the bow, whether you're going out this way or if you're pulling back like this. And eventually, you'll probably naturally be in the right position. You won't have to think about it, because it'll just be a habit. So those are some suggestions with bowing. And it takes a while. Don't expect it to come right away. But it's worth really working on your bowing.